This podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. I'm Rob Lawrence. I'm your host today for this very special episode celebrating 200 episodes of the Association for Coaching podcast. To celebrate 200 episodes, we're taking a 1-week break from the Coaching Outdoors series to hear from some previous hosts and contributors to the series, as well as from some of the digital learning team behind the podcast. So I have with me today from the digital learning team, Smaranda Dokia and Maxine Bell. Miranda Woodhouse couldn't be with us today. She's on maternity leave. So maybe I'll begin with you, Smaranda, and maybe a brief introduction to this 200th episode.
So hello everyone and welcome to our 200th episode. It's a great pleasure to have you listen to us today, going a little bit behind the scenes. We like to take a step back every now and again and celebrate our podcast endeavor. We stopped for our 100th episode, and then 150th was a special episode, and now we're at 200 episodes in our journey. It's been an amazing journey and we are all enjoying it. Every now and again, as I said, we take a step back and we allow our listeners to get a sneak peek behind the scenes, to meet the team and to hear what we're all about, what are the values, how we work, and also why we do what we do, what are the benefits of what's being put out there every week by this team. So it's a pleasure to be part of this conversation today, and I hope you're going to enjoy listening to this. We're not going back to sharing with you a lot about the team and who is who and when we started and why we're doing this. You'll have to go back to our 100th episode for that, and a little bit 150th one. We did quite a bit of that in those episodes, so if you haven't listened to those yet, would love for you to pause here and go back and listen to those. But now we're going to focus a little bit more on what is our podcast offering, why we're doing this, and what is the bigger picture of the Association for Coaching podcast, as there is a little bit more to it than just the podcast, and it's all integrated and it's all part of a bigger desire for us to be at the service of the coaching community, to support everyone in their coaching journey, and do that every step of the way, because there are so many steps that we are going through, and every coach has so many hurdles to go through in their journey, and we just want to be there for each part of it.
That's great. Thanks, Miranda. And you mentioned there that our podcast is part of a bigger picture. So I was just wondering for our listener whether you could explain a little bit more about that.
One of the things to share as well is that our podcast channel is part of a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is our digital learning work, the digital learning offerings that the Association for Our Coaching has on an ongoing basis. It's been quite a journey for digital learning. It's where we started, and the podcast kind of came along the way in a sense. In 2020, we started with the digital learning work back in 2015. So it's been 9 years of digital learning work, which has grown over the years. And all of that is now part of a digital learning hub, which is available on the AAC website, and which brings together all of the brilliant content that we've had along the years. So when you're thinking about learning, everyone is learning in a different way. You know that, somebody would prefer to listen to things. So this is audio version of our content. There is the written version of our content with the Coaching Perspective magazine that we have available for members as well, which is Brilliant Thought Leadership. And then there is the video / webinars part option for learning. So the digital learning started with webinar series that we've done from the beginning. We then continued with the type of member benefits, many things in that category. And all of this is now available on Digital Learning Hub.
So the digital learning hub that you mentioned there, Smaranda, that's been driven more recently by Nick Howell, is a new feature on the Association for Coaching website and for members and non-members. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that for our listener.
For those who are listening, if you can pop up to the AC website and find the Digital Learning Hub, it will be even easier as I speak about it to visualize. But the hub is split into a few parts, different colors for each of them, visually separated. We have our paid for programs, which are webinar series, workshops, signature programs, depending on how in depth the content is presented. And then we would have things that are available for members only, what we call our member benefit webinars, in so many, like the podcast, so many titles, programs that we've covered along the years, from health to building kind of health and well-being, mental health, building your coaching practice, podcasting. If you want to set up your own podcast, we give you guidance for that. Which by the way, it's with Rob. So he's giving guidance for how to set up your podcast. We have things around coaching in the workplace, around supervision and growing a supervision mindset or embracing the supervision mindset. We have specific things around accreditation or new member orientation webinars, and many topics that climate change. So all the topics that you can think of, you can find under our member benefit category. For those who are AC members, they can access this at any point in time and go back to all the on-demand webinars that we've had along the years. And then we have two categories that are completely open to anyone who is out there interested in coaching, interested to be part of the coaching community, even without being a member of the Association for Coaching. So there are the podcasts. Obviously, you can listen to it on any of your preferred platforms, basically. And it's available on the AC website as well, where you can find, by the way, all kinds of extra resources if you go on our website. So if you're listening to this on your preferred podcast platform and you've never popped up on our website, I recommend that, because with every episode you will find there quite a few resources, more things about the speaker, the guests, more things about what they're doing, kind of references, websites, all kinds of resources that you can imagine. So that there's quite a lot of value in there, and it's freely accessible for whoever is interested in this. The other bit that we have available to anyone are our LinkedIn interviews. So it's on the Coaching Conversations. We're doing quite many of those in various shapes and forms. We've started with connecting our Coaching Perspectives magazine and the brilliant articles we have in there, great things, thought leadership, amazing authors. We wanted to bring all of that to life. So we started interviewing those authors on LinkedIn. So we have periodic interviews with the authors of the articles. Those who are watching, you can watch it on demand on our website, can access also the articles. So whether you're a member or not, you can access that particular article, download it, read it, keep it for your own archive. So there is quite a lot of value in that. And then we do quite a few other types of interviews as well, linked to either, for instance, we are doing things around the next podcast series and we would interview the host, or we are interviewing speakers for our upcoming programs, conferences, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a lot in there as well. You can enjoy lots of value, lots of learnings. We always try to make sure that it's not promotional, it's actually value added, many learning points, and a lot that one can bring back into their coaching practice.
I agree, Smaranda, with the value that the podcast has to offer coaches and those interested in coaching, and the ripple effect of the content we produce every day, created by specialists and experts in the AC community that are guests on our podcasts. So Maxine, 200 episodes. What's the podcast mean to you?
What I love about what we do is the diversity of topics and voices that we have on here. We're not afraid to go outside the box, to be a little bit provocative, and to shake people's perspectives up a little bit. And also talk about the uncomfortable topics as well, like diversity and inclusion, like the things that are going on in the world. We want our podcast to be real and relatable. And I think we do that with the way we cover the diverse topics. And I love the fact that we have hosts that come and approach us and we give them a platform of which to experiment and to play and to bring the topic they're passionate about. And one of my favourite parts of the job is being able to coach them through that Rob and I do a lot. So
yeah, it's great to watch coaches who are podcast hosts for the first time evolve and develop as we support them with the technical and strategic side of creating a podcast, and then to offer them a ready-made platform and audience with which to share their new content and conversations feels like not only a gift to them, but to the community too. We've had a number of new hosts on the podcast in the last 200 episodes, and there wouldn't be enough time today to feature them all, but we have had a small handful of voice notes from previous hosts, some of who the AC podcast has been their first experience of being a host on a podcast. So we're going to hear from a couple of them now.
Sheila Hobden here. I took part in the podcast series because I wanted to persuade people that research is not stuffy. I wanted to open some eyes and ears to new ways of seeing it. And the great thing about it is that it's done for you by Rob and Maxine. They really supported me to ask questions that captured the message. Would I do it again? Yes, absolutely. Too many reasons to list. The support that they provided for me to learn and grow in my first podcast series was incredible. And they made it so easy. I just had to turn up and have some great conversations. So I would encourage you to listen, take part. It's a great way to develop.
I've got so much value and learning from the Association for Coaching podcast. I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to host 2 series, Coaching in the Climate Crisis and The Conscience of Coaching, and appear as a guest on a number of episodes so far. But I've appreciated it most perhaps as a listener. I've hugely enjoyed the diversity of thought, the diversity of idea, and the diversity of topics and hosts and guests. It's really speaking to a sense of the integrative in coaching, the idea of different ideas, of diversity of thoughts, of opinions, of modalities. And it has helped my coaching development, my coaching journey, and even my work as a supervisor. It's helped so much. And I have lost count of the number of episodes that I've recommended to folks all around the world. So thank you to the AC. And here's to the next 200.
George Warren there, who has hosted 2 series for the AC, Coaching in the Climate Crisis and The Conscience of Coaching. And also Sheila Hobden, who recently produced a fascinating series on the importance of research in coaching and how we need more of it. We'll hear from a few more hosts shortly. Smaranda, we've been able to cover a growing wide variety of topics on the podcast, which has been remarkable. Anyone taking a quick look at the Digital Learning Hub page on the associationforcoaching.com can see that we've covered easily over 20 topics in great depth over the last 4 years of the podcast. How do you feel the digital learning team has been able to achieve this?
Part of it is how we operate, because we are flexible and we are allowing for this to happen. Part of it is also in the context of allowing that those organic conversations to take place. And then, this team, which I'm really proud of, is making it all happen in no time. Yes. So the series that we are now in the middle of, so to say, if you're following us and listening to every episode, you will see that we are now in the middle of a coaching outdoor series. It was put together so fast, you wouldn't imagine, because we just had a number of conversations, and then exactly what I'm saying, one thing followed the other, and then we had an amazing group of guests. And each of them came with another aspect of how coaching outdoors can happen and what are the benefits of it and various sides of it. And that's how we have another wonderful series for you. Yes. So there is quite a lot in there. For those of you listening to us on an ongoing basis, you would have had the experience. You know how many topics we've had. I mean, we're doing everything from things that help coaches with their setup of coaching business, growing, marketing, getting started as a coach. That was a brilliant series for those who are, just at the beginning of their coaching career, and so on. But then there are a lot of things around health and well-being, mental health we've done recently, technology, innovation, creativity, those deeper topics like the conscious of coaching, the future of coaching, all those type of tools that you would think of in the coaching world. So tools and approaches. We have something coming up around psychometrics. There is so much content that I believe there is something for everyone. We've had a series on coaching women, on career coaching, coaching the whole person, coaching our future generations of the kind of the youth coaching part, and not to mention our research in coaching series that we've done recently, which is another aspect of coaching, really. So for everyone who is in the coaching world, there's probably not much that you wouldn't have heard in the coaching world that we haven't covered. Yes. And obviously there is always room for more. So if anyone listening says, oh, actually, I was thinking about this aspect of coaching and I haven't seen it on the AC podcast channel, then by all means come to us. As we said, we are going to just have another conversation, and that who knows what that will trigger, which is brilliant.
Maxine.
Gosh, Samantha, you've mentioned so much, but I think for me, I joined you when you were on episode 60 something, and now we're 200 episodes. So I've been here a while now. And I think for me, I already valued podcasts a bit before I joined, because I'd been listening to podcasts myself. And I just love the fact that you can listen to really great information, on the go. So I don't have to sit in front of a screen and wait to be said. I can just listen to a podcast. And it's been so incredible to see the standard of podcasts that you want to produce, and to become part of that team and to help develop this podcast has been great. And I really do honestly, sincerely believe that, we do offer great free content. Everything out there in the world seems to have a price these days. And it's just wonderful to be able to put a podcast out and for that to be free content and free, valuable content for coaches. As has been mentioned, we have such a range of topics, from the tech one that was one of the first ones I did, through to the creative coaching. Lots of practical podcasts versus podcasts that also dive a bit deeper into our place in the world. And the world around us with current issues. And I think that's really important, because you can't separate those, and we don't do that in the podcast. We try to cover all aspects. And different coaches will be drawn to different things, of course, that are listening. But I think if you listen to both parts of that, you get a really good overview. It's all the practical tips about being a coach, but also that thought-provoking aspect, that bigger picture of where does coaches fit in the world, I think is really valuable in what we do in the podcast. Coaching is about change after all, and we sit in the context of our families and societies and the world at large. And so it's important to examine how coaches can help bring about change in a bigger context, and to examine our own inner restrictions and biases. And I love that we cover those topics like we did in the diversity series, coaching with a conscience, and other times as well as the practical stuff. So I think that's invaluable and important to have that overall picture. And I think, we all feel that when we come together in our team meetings and, we come up with different topics, or our hosts approach us with a new one. It's amazing all the different parts of the jigsaw that those different viewpoints and perspectives cover. But for me as well, it coming under the umbrella of digital learning. And we also work with coaching perspectives a bit as well, because one of the things, I do is write the AC newsletter, and we try to bring together all of the opportunities for learning together in that newsletter for people to access. So the free content on the podcast, plus all the different webinars and events that are linked to the learning that we try and offer from the AC through digital learning. And definitely since we've developed the Digital Learning Hub, accessing that content is so much easier. It's a massive improvement on what was going on before with the website, which I think was difficult to navigate. And now we have this really easy navigation system for anyone to check out any different topics. And yes, and sometimes we've had guests from digital learning that come over in as a podcast guest. And sometimes I have a podcast guest who I think is going to be great for digital learning. And so I send Lucy, who manages the digital learning, an email and say, I think this person's got a lot more to say on this topic and would be really great in a webinar. And that's what's really great, the different formats. Coaching Perspectives, I think, has some really great articles. Like us, they try to give a more diverse range of perspectives and voices. And all of these three aspects, the magazine, digital learning, and the podcast kind of link. And the good thing about having digital learning there is we can introduce a topic, we can raise some curiosity in a podcast, but sometimes people want the opportunity to ask questions and have a more interactive discussion with the guest or the teacher or the speaker of that topic. And so being able to pass over ideas into digital learning is just incredible that we can do that. So, someone might listen to a conversation about cognitive behavioural coaching in the podcast and think that sounds really interesting, but then they can go into the Digital Learning Hub and actually dive a bit deeper and watch a webinar series on that topic. So we don't match up all topics, but we do match up a lot. And that's why we sort of decided to put it in a newsletter so people get the idea that you might find this in a podcast, but go and look in the Digital Learning Hub as well and see if there's something where you can learn even more. And then, of course, we take that a step further with the events that you've mentioned, Smiranda. And for me, being involved I came up with the idea for the Creative Coaching Fest on a spur of the moment, and then everyone was so excited. And it's an incredible process to put something like that together, 2 days of online global content. There's so much work involved in that, and I never realised so much details. And Smiranda, you're so good at paying attention to the details and creating a process and always thinking about the user journey. And I hope that comes across in what value people get from podcasts and digital learning, because there is a lot of attention paid to detail. We're not saying we're perfect, but it's just the intention is there to get the detail as right as we possibly can. And, and apart from unexpected tech hiccups or things like that, I think we do a pretty good job. And I was really moved and proud of what happened in the Creative Coaching Fest. And it's lovely. And literally just before that one was finishing, Smiranda, you're jumping on to the next one. It's a mental health conference. And I was so impressed with the digital learning team. I'm the podcast manager, and I do obviously have some connection with digital learning, but I hadn't seen the amount of work that goes into even presenting a webinar and how efficient you all are in your different roles and communications in that space. So I think it's a great offering. The digital library is getting larger all the time, of course. The topics getting covered are getting broader and in more detail, and I think it's a wonderful resource. Yes, there are costs on some of those webinars, but I still think it's really good value for money if you compare it with some of the other offerings that are out there. It's just an easy access, along with the podcast, professional development. You can investigate something you might think would be interesting to add to your coaching practice without any really big financial or time commitment. But, you can do that. And I think that is invaluable.
Thanks, Maxine. So, Smiranda, I very much see the podcast not as something separate, but very much an integrated part of the AC, and particularly digital learning, and more so with the conferences that are coming off the back of the various podcast series that we're putting together, and the enthusiasm and the support by hosts, guests and listeners alike to want to take their learning further. Would you like to add to what Maxine has just shared, given how the Digital Learning Hub is making it much easier for folks to navigate content these days? We had the Technology Conference and the Creative Fest, as Maxine just mentioned just recently, and more to come.
Yeah, the bits that we have been doing recently, and we're quite proud of this, are in terms of our offerings with digital learning are our conferences. So we're doing short 2 days online conferences on specific topics. Last year we did something around technology in coaching, AI. Where is it all going with AI, and what does it mean for coaching? We've moved into a very different topic in a sense with creativity in coaching in another conference this year in April. That was amazing from the point of view of heart feeling. Loads of interactivity, many creative tools, amazing people, brilliant feedback that we've received from everyone. And now we have been promoting our mental health and well-being conference, mental health in coaching and supervision, with many questions from everyone as to why, how, what are the boundaries, what are the lines to cross or not to cross, and differences between coaching, therapy, and where mental health sits in between all of those. So very interesting topics. This one will take place in November of this year. Watch this space, because next year there will surely be another conference. And there's so much that we are offering. So people are asking us, how comes we have so many topics? And as I said at some point in the beginning, there's so much coming from the conversations we're having with people. And that has some value in itself, because it means that's where people are at, that's where they are sitting, what they're interested in, and we co-create everything, which is brilliant.
Thanks, Miranda. Yeah, watch this space, and I couldn't agree more, particularly given as we're in the middle of the Coaching Outdoors series. I think we would all agree that the interest and enthusiasm for this particular topic really reflects the movement that's going on in coaching outdoors in the world today. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more online digital learning events as a result of the various different subjects that come up as part of the podcast series going forward. As mentioned, we've covered quite a number of topics already now on the podcast, so we're going to have a listen to a few more voices from previous hosts on some of these topics. And there may be someone listening to our 200th episode today, you, who might have a good idea for a series, or you might like to give podcast hosting a go. So one of the great pleasures from my point of view working with the AC is the opportunity to support coaches and those interested in coaching with their own hosting growth. So we're going to hear a little bit more now from the experience of some of those previous hosts.
I'm Felicity Dwyer. I found hosting the Coaching the Whole Person series a brilliant experience. The team provided guidance and support, and they provided the technical skills to help turn my idea for a series into a reality. Hosting helped me to share thought-provoking ideas with the wider coaching community, and I learned a lot myself from hosting the series. Being a host has helped me to expand my network, and I've been invited onto other podcasts as a guest as a result of being a host. I've also noticed that I'm more relaxed and confident as a guest, having experienced podcasting from both sides. I thoroughly recommend it. Thank you to the team.
Hi, this is Mark Crossfield, host of the Your Bravo Career podcast. Congratulations on 200 episodes, and thanks for letting me play with the knobs and sliders at AC Podcast HQ. I had a fantastic experience recording and publishing my series on career coaching. The opportunity to speak to some amazing individuals not only enriched my knowledge, but also helped me grow as a career coach. This experience led to several exciting opportunities and allowed me to make many new connections. I found the support from the team invaluable. They made the process seamless and enjoyable. So, participating in the podcast series has been truly a pivotal moment in my professional journey, and I highly recommend getting involved with the AC podcast, whether as a listener or as a guest. So thanks again. I look forward to hearing what's next.
Being a podcast host enables you to use your coaching skills really effectively and to speak to some fascinating people on the subject of leadership.
Sue Stockdale there, who hosted some of the very first episodes of the AC podcast back in 2020 as part of the Coaching in the Workplace conference. And thanks to Mark and Felicity for those kind comments and sharing their experience. You can hear their own series on the Digital Learning Hub by heading over to associationforcoaching.com. So as we begin to wrap up, I wanted to come back to you, Smaranda, to ask about the future and where we're going with the podcast from here.
So one of the things that we are doing at the Association for Coaching, and especially with the digital learning work that we are doing, is we want to offer value. We want to offer the learning. Yes, there is continuous professional development in so many shapes and forms. It's all part of an open, friendly community where people have access to those who are offering this. So when we are thinking what else to put out there, it's not some kind of intense brainstorming on our side and, some magical things that are popping up afterwards in terms of content, but it is all part of conversations that we are having with our hosts, conversations that we are having with our guests, conversations that we are having with the speakers from the digital learning webinars that we are doing, and simply with anyone in our community. So a lot of the topics that you will see on this podcast are things that actually came about from various conversations that we've had with people, which is, from my end, a really nice thing, because it's not like there's a small group out there that is thinking what our community would like to hear, and they're kind of cooking everything in their little team. But there is an openness and a friendliness to everything that we do. That means that it all emerges in a very natural way. So we would have a conversation about some topic or some idea, and then that follows with another conversation that deepens the thought, and then we, 1 week later, we pop up with a whole new podcast series that is being prepared, and lots of topics and so on.
Thanks, Miranda. You remind me there of the very organic way in which the podcast adapts to cater for the emerging themes and topics in the ever-changing world of coaching, a world that is growing quickly in terms of the number of coaches, those interested in coaching, and of course those that require coaching, and the areas in which coaching covers. So, Maxine, final thoughts?
So yeah, we're 200 episodes, and I think we're recognising the value of the podcast. Like I said, this ability to listen on the go, this ability that we've got now where potentially a podcast leads to a digital learning event or a bigger thing like the tech conference and the other conferences we've held so far and are still planning to do. So they build on each other, and it allows you to take a deeper dive each time and to participate in that learning in a very interactive way with the webinars. So yeah, and I think. Yeah, the podcast really for me is about encouraging curiosity. I want it to be thought-provoking. I want it to be practical as well, because we all want tips on, one of our most popular episodes was, how to work out what to charge a client. That was way back in some of the first podcasts in the Boost Your Coaching Business series. And I can understand there is a need for that. When I first qualified, it was... I was lost really. How much do I charge, and how do I do this, and how do I do that? So I love that we provide that in the podcast. The marketing series is just a whole wonderful sort of module on its own if you want marketing tips. So keeping it practical, but also raising curiosity, encouraging investigation, people discovering new people they might like to follow or network with. It's wonderful, and I love the aspect of my job where I get to say to somebody in the magazine, I think this person could write a great article, or two coaches who have recorded separate episodes, but I think might link up on something. I did that the other day, sent an email to some guests we'd had to link them up with each other because I felt they might have something they want to share. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background as well that's not obvious on the podcast, but our goal is to provide good free content, to provide learning opportunities within the whole Digital Learning Hub and podcasts, and to encourage you to want to learn and encourage you to know that you can learn things. And it's okay if you don't know something. Look, if you don't know how to get started as a coach, here's a podcast series about it. And also just to think about what your own values are as a coach, who you are as a coach, where you would like to take your coaching forward. And being okay in the space of not knowing, but having the opportunity to investigate through the podcast and digital learning and all the resources that guests recommend as well, the articles and the books and all the things that go in the show notes. So, it extends out. And in the AC, we talk about ripple effects a lot. And we see so many ripple effects from the podcast series. Besides the fact of just listening and learning from the content, there's networking that goes on. There's, like I said, guests connecting with each other. The creative coaching series I did created a whole community of creative coaches that have, had a lot of contact with each other and become friends and fellow researchers and many other things, sharing people and ideas with different elements of the Association for Coaching. Or because we have links with like the Mo Foundation, I sent the Getting Started as a Coach series because they train coaches. So there's all that for training providers as well. This content, it's not just for individual coaches. And it's great for people that are considering coaching. They get to have a really great overview of coaching and can just quietly investigate without having too much demand on their time or their finances. So, I think podcasts, and there's something about audio is very special. But I also think that, like I said, that you skip over into a video and webinar situation, you get a chance to ask questions and to learn even more. So it's not about one being better than the other. It's about them both being equally valuable, potentially for slightly different reasons. But the learning is still there. The chance for a lot of different voices to speak and be heard, and different perspectives, and a ton of practical advice to help you be the coach that you'd like to be, or discover the coach that you want to be. And even if you've been doing it for 20 years, to think, oh, that's a new idea, and it hopefully gives you a nice refresh when you've been coaching for a while, to hear something new, or hear a new voice, or hear a new resource. So I'm proud to, have been involved in the podcast and under the umbrella of digital learning, and work alongside that team as well, and the magazine as well. 200 episodes, and I don't know what the number of digital learning webinars are, but however many hundreds of that there are, of wonderful content, either free or at a very good investment price, shall we say, for you, compared to a lot of courses out there. I think it's brilliant value. And, Miranda has created some amazing teams and amazing processes to get that out to you. So let's hope you enjoy and benefit from the next 200 episodes.
Thanks, Maxine. And I'd like to add my thanks to Miranda, you, of course, Maxine, and the digital learning team for all the amazing work they do in the Digital Learning Hub and with the AC and the podcast. And of course, you, the listener. If you're listening to this, then the chances are you get a lot from this podcast too. So we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us either through LinkedIn individually or via email at the Association for Coaching by emailing us at inquiries@associationforcoaching.com. Thank you for joining us for our 200th episode and celebrating this momentous occasion with you. I look forward to speaking to you again next week with our next episode of the Coaching Outdoors series. Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For over 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations, and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or visit our webpage at associationforcoaching.com. Explore our digital learning hub and enjoy our extensive library of on-demand webinars, signature programs, member benefits, interviews, podcasts, and a portfolio of live events featuring thought leadership, tools, models, and the latest industry trends to help you develop and increase your coaching expertise.